Hi, my name is Matthew Moniz, and welcome to my Is It Worth It series where I review phones that are 6 to 12 months old and talk about what's new, what's changed, and most importantly, is it still worth buying? Today I'm revisiting the Nexus 6P, which I declared the best Android smartphone of 2015, a phone that was made in collaboration between Google and Huawei. Now, a lot of people haven't even heard of Huawei until the Nexus 6P came here to North America. Now, the latest Nexus device answers a lot of needs and wants that a lot of Android diehard fans have been wanting for a very long time. A premium phone running stock Android at a reasonable price. Alright, so I'm not going to list all the specs about this phone since the phone has been out for quite some time, but I will place a link in the description down below that will take you to my review that I did late last year. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is some of the good things about this phone. And the first thing is definitely the camera. This phone takes some of the best pictures and videos that are currently on the market, and that goes without even having optical image stabilization. Next up is the display, and the Samsung AMOLED panel has some of the deepest blacks that I've seen on a smartphone to date. The colors are super vivid, and reading text is a complete joy. Now, one of the biggest problems with earlier Nexus devices was the battery life. You just couldn't get through the entire day. Well, with the Nexus 6P, that's no longer a problem. I no longer have to plug my phone in sometime during the day so I can make it to the end, something that the Nexus 5 and even the Nexus 6 suffered from. And next up is the build quality. This is the first Nexus device to have a all-metal build. It's premium, feels good, and looks great, even though the device is a little tall because of the external speakers. And speaking of those external speakers, they sound absolutely awesome. Sound is clear, sound is crisp, even at high volumes. And finally, the most important thing to me is getting updates immediately. There's nothing better getting the most recent version of Android as soon as it comes out. But of course, there is no such thing as a perfect smartphone, and the Nexus 6P, along with Android 6.0 Marshmallow, still have their fair share of annoyances. And the first one I want to talk about is Bluetooth. The Nexus 6P has some serious Bluetooth issues. When you're trying to connect a device or keeping a device connected, I find the connection sometimes drops and doesn't even connect in general. I had this problem with the Moto 360 2nd gen, and I also had the problem with a pair of headphones that I use on a daily basis. Now, I did get around the problem by factory resetting the device, clearing the cache, and jumping through a bunch of hoops that most people shouldn't have to do. Now, this is a known issue, and there's a huge thread going on the Google product forums where people are experiencing the same issues. Now, of course, this is not a Nexus 6P hardware related problem, but more of an Android 6.0 problem that hopefully will get fixed in a future update. Next up is performance, and overall this phone is definitely one of the fastest phones I've used in 2015. And overall the user experience is quite good. But it is using a Snapdragon 810 processor, which does have a lot of heating issues. Now, the Nexus 6P doesn't have heating issues itself. And that's because Google has done a good job at keeping the 810 at bay. So there's a lot of throttling when you're doing too many things. And when that happens, the actual user experience suffers, and I find the phone will get quite laggy. Now, this doesn't happen too often. It's maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, and I find myself having to restart the phone in order to have a smooth experience again. Now, this is not a problem with Android 6.0, it's just a problem with the Snapdragon 810 specifically. And finally, syncing issues with Google Apps, or more specifically Gmail. Sometimes I would get an email on my iPhone, and then 15 to 20 minutes later, it would come in on my Nexus device. Now, this is definitely not a Nexus 6P hardware related problem. It's an issue ever since I updated to Android 6.0.1, and there's a lot of people who are experiencing the same thing. Now, Google does know about it, and hopefully they will work on a fix in order to fix this issue in a future update. Now, some people say you can disable doze in order to make this go away, but overall, it's a small but annoying issue that shouldn't happen. I've actually even read reports where people won't even get an email for up to 15 to 20 hours later, or unless they manually update itself. Alright, so here's the bottom line. The Nexus 6P, in my opinion, is still the best Android smartphone that you can buy on the market today. Sure, it has a few software problems, but they're more Android 6.0 related, and not specifically with the device itself. The only hardware issue that I experienced that was specific to the Nexus 6P was the Snapdragon 810 processor and the issue of that fluid user experience sometimes slowing down. So should you go out there and buy this phone? Most definitely. It'll still be my #1 recommendation to most people who are looking for an Android smartphone. Now, if you can pick this up on a contract for $0, that's great, or I recommend buying it outright from Google itself. I want to hear in the comments below about your experiences with the Nexus 6P, what you like, what you don't like about it. I want to thank everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see everybody in the next video.